All right, welcome to the 44th edition of Before the Battle. My name is Nick Baldwin, and joining me as always is the host of Half the Battle and the man behind BestFightPicks.com, Daniel Levi. Daniel, how's it going?
It's going amazing, dude. I mean, we got the heavyweight championship on the line, good friends on the line as well, and I'm pumped to talk the fights, man.
Yeah, good friends, especially on the line if you guys disagree on bets-wise. But joining us as always, writer for Sportsnet.ca, go Paolo. Paolo, how's it going?
As always, I'm back. I mean, not as always, I'm back. I meant to say, as always, I'm back after a 2-week hiatus or something. And you know what? Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I'm ready to watch some fights, ready to talk some fights.
There you go. Now, joining us for the first time, filling in for Biggie, who's kind of just disappeared. He hasn't been on the show for quite some time. Filling in for him, though, is Kyle, Rockstarzee, an MMA bettor. Kyle, how's it going?
It's going great, man. You can't expect Biggie to come on, though. He's got to be in Punk's corner this weekend, you know? So he gets a pass, but I'll try to do my best to fill the spot.
Yeah, and even if he has something else going on, he always gets a pass because, well, he is Mike Biggie Rhodes. Anyways, UFC 203 goes down from Cleveland, Ohio this weekend, this Saturday. As Daniel mentioned there a few seconds ago, the heavyweight championship is on the line. Stipe Miocic versus Alistair Overeem in the main event, which, of course, we'll talk about at the end of the show. Kicking things off, though, on the Fight Pass prelims, we got a lightweight battle between Drew Dober and newcomer Jason Gonzalez. Daniel, I'll start with you. What do you know about Jason Gonzalez, the newcomer, and how do you think he matches up against Drew Dober?
Hey, Kyle and Paul, I'll ask you guys because Nick doesn't watch The Ultimate Fighter. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah, I know.
Remember that episode when Conor McGregor was screaming at that guy for flopping on his back and like basically quitting in his fight? Well, that guy beat Jason Gonzalez. And, yeah, I think Dober is a lot tougher than Gonzalez, and I got him for the victory here.
Kyle, what do you know about Gonzalez? That probably just what Daniel said there made me more confident in Dober. How do you think this fight plays
out? If you don't remember who Jason Gonzalez is, I'm sure you'll remember who his sister was. But I got Dober easily in this one. He's got a lot of fight in him. I think his Muay Thai checks out here. Jason likes to be a little flippy with his striking, and I think he's got some pop behind it, but I don't really think he has the technical proficiency that Dober does, as well as the fact that Dober can get on top and grind it out. He's been known to do that, and Gonzalez showed on The Ultimate Fighter that he doesn't really have much of a get-up game. So for me, I like Drew Dober, and I'll probably be using him as a parlay leg.
Interesting. Paulo, how do you see this one playing out? Drew Dober, the favorite, as expected. Do you think he picks up the victory here?
Yeah, Drew Dober's going to win. Jason Gonzalez, I mean, when I saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, I'm like, well, I bet the UFC wants this guy to beat Andre Oliveira or whatever his name was, because Andre Oliveira was like, Spanish dude, barely spoke English, kind of up there in age. They can't really market him, but this guy, he's got the looks of a fighter. He's a stand-up fighter. So UFC must be like, oh yeah, this guy's very marketable and stuff. So I guess that's why they're bringing him in here against Drew Dober. But I don't see him winning this. I think after round 2, Drew Dober's gonna grind him out or beat him up at some point.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Jason Gonzalez, but I will trust you guys. Drew Dober is a tough fighter. He's a very gritty fighter, good wrestling. So I'm going to go Drew Dober here, and I would be surprised, going by what you guys said there, if Gonzalez pulls off the victory. Next up, we got CB Dollaway taking on Francimar Barroso in a light heavyweight matchup. Daniel, who do you like here?
I mean, I don't like either, but I'm leaning towards Francimar Barroso because Fade Power MMA. I understand that CB Dollaway has got a lot more experience. He's been around the game. But, him moving up to 205, it might be because the weight cuts got tough. I mean, that's what conventional wisdom would say. But I honestly think it's more like a Ed Herman versus Tim Boesch type thing where, he just, he got lazy. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Francimar Barroso here for the upset.
Tim Boesch did drop back down, though, so the laziness only lasted a fight.
And he actually won against your bloody elbow colleague.
He did. So that kind of sucked. Kyle, who do you see winning this fight, CB Dollaway or Francimar Barroso?
I'll lean with Dalloway here. I think the move up might be good for him. I understand what Dan's saying. It might just be that he's getting a little hungry. But yeah, I mean, Dober. I always overestimate this guy though, and he always lets me down. But I think he's got decent hands, good awareness in the pocket, and I think he's just a much better wrestler and scrambler than Barroso is. But that said, Barroso, he's one of these. I always say like Nova and Yao style striker, and what I mean by that is it's just defensively tight, holds his ground and throws like kind of single shots, but everything is pretty clean. But yeah, I can see CB kind of schooling him on the feet, being light on his feet, and then mixing in takedowns to win a decision. But there's no way I want to lay minus 175 on CB Dalloway. So easy pass for me.
Yes, Paolo, CB Dalloway's the favorite here. Do you think he gets the job done over Francimar Barroso?
Yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna screw the logic or who I think is gonna win and pick the guy I want to win because I honestly don't want to watch another Francimar Barroso fight. So I honestly hope CB Dalloway goes out there and knocks him out. That said, CB Dalloway doesn't really have a good chance. So even if Francimar Barroso hasn't really been knocking guys' heads off, if he comes in there and hits Dalloway clean and Dalloway just goes down, I won't be surprised at all.
Yes, CB Dalloway is coming off a loss to Nate Marquardt, and Dalloway is probably the only guy in the UFC Nate Marquardt can beat in 2015 or in 2016. That said, I am going to go CB Dalloway because Francimar Barroso, nothing impressive. I don't like watching him fight. Usually I'd be fading CB Dalloway in 2016, but he's fighting Francimar Barroso. I agree with Kyle here 100%. I think Dalloway's going to be better on the feet. He has more power, in my opinion, and I think he will be able to mix in some takedowns as well midway through the fight, throughout the fight, and grind out a decision victory here. Headlining the fight past early prelims, we got a welterweight matchup between Yancy Medeiros, who's making his 170 debut in the UFC, taking on Sean Spencer. Kyle, who do you like here?
I like betting on Sean Spencer in this spot. Now, I will say sloppy on my part, but originally I thought that it was Spencer moving down. I think it's the same thing as far as stylistically. I don't like Yancy Medeiros fighting a guy of his height because he's one of these fighters who likes to really throw that jab out, just flippy, and kind of use his length a lot. And when you get a guy like Sean Spencer who, is not a world beater by any account, but has very serviceable boxing, decent hands, he's just very well-rounded on the feet, in my opinion, very tight and technical. And I just see him landing the bigger shots against Yancy Medeiros. So when I'm leaning towards the guy and he opens as the underdog, that to me warrants a 2-unit bet. So I put 2 units on Spencer at plus 120. Again, that said, this is no lock. Like, this is just a case where I see a very favorable stylistic matchup for an underdog. So I'm gonna take the shot.
Well, there you go. Daniel, are you going with Yancy Medeiros here, or do you like the underdog Sean Spencer?
Man, it's a good one. I like Sean Spencer. I mean, if you're James Vick's boy, then you're my boy. And also, I've bet on him many times, so I got experience in betting this guy's fights. And basically, what you got to look out for is he'll drop dudes in that first round, and then he won't finish them. And he's done this more than once. I mean, against Cahal Pendred, against Paulo Tiago, and most recently against Mike Pyle. So, he's going to probably drop Medeiros, and then you're going to be screaming at your TV. Why are you getting tied up? Why aren't you finishing him? And with Medeiros, one thing we know is that he's very tough. He's also very hittable. But I think moving up a weight class is going to aid him because, I mean, we all know those 15 extra pounds of water in your body and your brain, it goes a long way. I mean, look at Poirier, look at Whitaker. They're doing big things. And I'm very curious to see this one. I think that Medeiros is coming back too soon from that Francisco Trinaldo war. But with Spencer, man, you gotta be careful, man, because he'll tend to fuck shit up late. You know what I mean? He'll drop you in that first round and then he'll kind of coast. So I want to see what kind of improvements he's made. So I'm gonna lean Spencer, but I don't really know.
Paulo, do you agree with both Daniel and Kyle here? Do you like Sean Spencer for the upset, or do you think the Hawaiian can get the job done?
Man, I don't know. I agree with Daniel and Kyle, but I'm just gonna pick Yancy Medeiros here, going on their points. I think Spencer's gonna be winning the fight early. He's probably gonna drop Medeiros or hurt him at some point because Yancy he does get hit in a lot of his fights. He's just really tough, which could also be his detriment because he stays standing and he gets lit up a little bit more. But thing about Yancey, he can get a little bit reckless sometimes, and he throws those spinning shit. But those spinning shit tends to hit Sean Spencer, like what Mike Pyle proved. I think he hit him with a couple of spinning elbows in that fight and eventually finished him. So, I mean, if Sean Spencer doesn't win the first 2 rounds handily, we all know that, you know, Sean Spencer tends to be the wrong end of judges sometimes. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to go Medeiros here. I think he can rally and probably win by decision towards the end.
Yes, I agree with Paolo here. I like Yancy Medeiros, although it is a tough fight to call with Yancy Medeiros stepping up in weight for the first time. Usually that affects guys positively. As Daniel mentioned, look at Robert Whittaker as of late, Dustin Poirier, etc. They've been doing amazing things. They're contenders in both their respective divisions. Yancy Medeiros, one issue I have is he's so hittable. He got knocked out by Dustin Poirier and then got it was a great fight against Francisco Trinaldo, but he did get beat up a ton in that matchup. Sean Spencer, though, so unreliable in my opinion. The Mike Pyle fight, he of course was looking good early on, and then got knocked out in the 3rd round. So I can't trust Sean Spencer in really any fight. Yancy Medeiros, I think, is a lot tougher than Sean Spencer, and I think he gets the job done here. And I wouldn't be surprised if Yancy Medeiros is able to pull off the finish. Now, next up, we got, opening up the FS1 prelims, we got a pivotal flyweight matchup between number 5, Ian McCall, and number 14, Ray the Taz Mexican Devil Borg. Daniel, who do you like in this 125-pound matchup?
I like them both, man. It's a tough one to call. You know, with Ian McCall, he's obviously a vet. He's been there with everyone. I mean, he arguably beat DJ the first time they fought, you know, a while back. And, man, you know, he hasn't fought in a while since his last one with John Lineker, where, you know, obviously the body shots were a problem, as they are in all of John Lineker's fights. But how about that guillotine that John Lineker kept going for? You know who else likes to jump guillotine a lot? Ray Borg. So, I mean, and also with Ray Borg, you got to factor, you know, that he's only 23 years old. So this kid's getting better fight by fight. And he was thrown into the deep end in his UFC debut against Dustin Ortiz and performed admirably for my money. So I like Ray Borg here, man. I think he's going to come out and improve. He's been putting in some work with Six Gun Gibson. That shows me a sign of maturity, because Six Gun's at a rival gym, you know, in Albuquerque that Ray Borg goes to. So the fact that he's doing that, that shows me maturity, man. I think he's going to come back better here. So I got Ray Borg.
All right, now, Paolo, do you like Ray Borg, or do you like the veteran here, Ian McCall?
Yeah, I like Ray Borg here. And the thing is, it's funny because if Ray Borg had beaten Justin Scoggins, I think he would be the favorite in this fight. But, I mean, Justin Scoggins is an entirely different matchup for him. I think that might even be a worse matchup for him, because Scoggins was tall and lanky. I mean, he stuffed his takedowns and basically just picked them apart from the outside. But with Ian McCall, this guy's coming off from I think his last injury was a broken hand or something like that. So who knows if he's gun shy, like pulling that trigger. I mean, he's getting up there in age. Reports before that he was contemplating retirement at one point. So it's really hard to see his motivation level. But with Ray Borg coming off that loss, I think he's going to be more motivated, and he's going to go out there to prove a point at McCall's expense. So I got Ray Borg here.
Yeah, Kyle, who do you like, Ray Borg or Ian McCall?
It's an interesting point bringing up Six Gun Gibson training Ray Borg for this one, because Six Gun's legit. You know, he's a legitimate striking coach for MMA. But from what I've seen in the cage, I just don't think Ray Borg has the ability to close the distance on Ian McCall. Ian McCall's super light on his feet, good volume, a good wrestler in his own right. So I think he's going to be able to dance around Borg for the majority of the fight, pick and poke, and then defend the takedowns when Ray tries to take him down. But that striking coaching is interesting. I'm going to be interested to see how Ray approaches this fight. But again, like from what I've seen in the cage already, Ray is on Ian's level, skill for skill. But if you want to take the shot on Ray improving and McCall being a little bit shot-worn, I can see that. I can see taking Ray Borg. But for my money, I'm going to go with Ian McCall probably by decision.
No, I'm going to go with the prospect, the up-and-comer here, Ray Borg. I'm not too confident because, I mean, I did favor him in that fight against Justin Scoggins, and I know Justin Scoggins is very legit, but it's an interesting case with Ray Borg because I feel he's underperformed in his past couple outings. The fight, what's the name of the guy that just lost to Ali? Oh, Sean Herrera. I felt Borg should have done better in that fight. I felt he should have finished a guy like John Herrera. He did not. He still clearly won the fight, but at the end of the day, Ian McCall is on his way out. He's talked about retirement on numerous occasions. He just can't pick a guy like Ian McCall in 2016 because he's been talking about retirement. He's been out of action for a long time. Although he did recently go through the weight cut, made weight when he was supposed to fight Scoggins, so making weight won't be an issue. Ray Borg, though, is really, really good on the ground. This is a tough one. I'm going to go Ray Borg. I don't think he stops Ian McCall because McCall is still tough enough to defend on the mat. I think that's my opinion anyways. I'm going to go Ray Borg, though, by decision. Now, next up, we got Nick Lentz taking on newcomer Michael McBride. Daniel, what do you know about the newcomer here, Michael McBride, and how do you think he matches up against Nick Lentz?
It's funny because if you just look at his record and don't watch the film, it actually looks like a legit prospect. You know, he's only lost to Emmanuel Sanchez, who is no slouch at all. But then you go and you watch his fights. He's super tall for the weight class, but he's one of these tall, skinny guys that gets taken down a lot. You know, it doesn't utilize his reach that well. I got Nick Lentz here, but man, I wish the Taisumov fight was still on because you know that would have been a serious result. But I gotta go with Lentz here, man. I think Lentz, you know, he's gonna be a vet here. He's gonna submit him. So yeah, Nick Lentz.
All right, Kyle, who do you like in this lightweight matchup?
Quick side note, as far as Taisumov is concerned, I'm campaigning for him to fight Nick Hein because both those guys like fighting in Europe, and you know, that would be a fun fight to watch if you know what I mean. But here, yeah, I haven't seen any tape on McBride. I couldn't find it, so props to Dan. I agree with what he says, though. I've heard he's a tall jiu-jitsu player. I just think Nick Lentz is going to roll here, but there's no way I'm trusting him at -400. So yeah, simple fight for me.
Paolo, Nick Lentz is a sizable favorite here. How do you think he matches up against the newcomer McBride?
Yeah, you know, I don't know much about McBride, but I mean, reading from what people know about him and the way he looks and stuff. I mean, yeah, he's this tall, lanky guy who's got good jiu-jitsu, but questionable everything else. And Nick Lentz, we all know what Nick Lentz is going to do. He's going to go in there and grind out the other fighter. And I think the only TKO wins he has is where the guy is basically just like on his back and not defending himself. So yeah, Nick Lentz is going to win, but I honestly hope that McBride just goes out there and knees him and knocks him out, like something crazy like that. We're just like, oh shit, and then Nick Lentz gets cut from the UFC or something. I don't know.
No, he's still got to fight Tyson.
Well,
or that, yeah.
Yeah, the Taisumov matchup wouldn't have been too pretty for Nick Lentz, but this is a pretty fight for him. I think the veteran here will look really good here. He'll be able to dominate Michael McBride, I think, en route to a decision. Next up, we got Brad Tavares taking on Chao Megalhage. Daniel, who do you like here?
I don't know, man. It's a tough one because Magalhães can knock dudes out, especially early. And Brad Tavares, I mean, he's a tough Hawaiian warrior. He's got a good point fighting style, good leg kicks, good takedowns. He's athletic. He's big for the weight class. But his chin ain't the best. And Caio can crack. So, I mean, I don't blame people for taking that shot on Caio here. But at the same time, I do think that the long-term battle will be won by Brad Tavares. So, yeah, I'm going to pick him via unanimous decision.
Paulo, do you agree? Are you going with Brad Tavares to get back into the winning column here, or do you think Hellboy can pull off the upset?
Yeah, you know, I'm going to pick Tavares, but with that said, like I am at picking guys who usually win by points but don't have a good chin, it's definitely a shaky pick, right? Because at any time, Caio could land that big punch and just put away Brad. But I think Brad's gonna win. Maybe use the clinch the most. And use it. He's gonna win.
Kyle, Brad Tavares, the favorite here. Do you think he would get the job done over Chao Megalhães?
Yeah, I think he easily wins this fight. Caio, he's got power, but he just throws wild hooks. Decent jiu-jitsu, but I don't think it's going to the ground. I think Brad Tavares stays behind his jab, really puts on a clinic in this fight. You got to remember, too, like he got knocked out in his last fight, so maybe his chin's cracked, but he did take a year off since then. And he's training with Ray Cephos. So I feel like even in his early 30s, he's still making improvements, and he already had a good skill set to build on. So I like Brad Tavares pretty clearly here. But again, I'm looking at minus 170. I don't really want to trust that chin at that price. So yeah, for my money, it's Brad Tavares by decision easily, but probably going to be a pass.
Yep, I'm going to agree. Brad Tavares, I think, will be able to outpoint Hellboy on the feet in a relatively one-sided affair, I guess you can say. Michael Hayes, if he lands, he can definitely crack, as you guys mentioned. If he lands, Brad Tavares, his chin isn't the best. Got knocked out a few times by Tim Boesch and, of course, most recently, Robert Whittaker. So we'll see what happens when it comes to Tavares' chin. We'll see how the layoff affects him, but I think he'll be able to outpoint Michael Hayes on the feet and win a decision. Next up, the headliner of the Fox Sports 1 prelims, we got number 10 women's bantamweight Jessica Evil Eye taking on number 11 Besh the Pitbull Kohea. Daniel, who do you like in this women's 135-pound matchup?
I like Betch Kohea a lot here, man. I think she's going to outstrike Jessica Eye. You know, there's one thing we can all agree on. Betch Kohea is way more confident than Jessica Eye. Y'all see Jessica Eye's last fight? She didn't even fight. She was there for 15 minutes, and she didn't fight. She didn't throw a punch, and she's this counter striker and stuff. But, I mean, look, back before the Reebok deal and, you know, the thing that starts with a U and an S and an A and a D and an A was implemented in the UFC, that's when she, you know, made a chick's ear explode. But ever since that thing has started, she dropped 3 straight and doesn't throw punches anymore and stuff, man. Look, with Betch, yeah, I get that she got knocked out in 20 seconds by Ronda. You know who else would get knocked out in 20 seconds by Ronda? Jessica Eye. So to me, I don't really put much stock into that. What I put more stock into is how did she rebound from that. The way she rebounded from that was she beat Raquel Pennington 30-27, but got robbed onto 2 of the judges' scorecards. So to me, if you can beat the number 5 guy in the world, or excuse me, number 5 woman in the world, then hey, that tells me that you're a top fighter in that division, and Jessica Eye isn't. So I understand she's in Cleveland, and you know I believe in all this shit. But listen, man, I got to go with Betch Kohea via unanimous decision here.
You could argue that Betch Kohea didn't rebound too greatly. You could argue that Pennington beat her 29-28. But anyways, Kyle, who do you like in this women's bantamweight matchup?
I'm guilty of robbery there. I had Pennington in that fight, so I was definitely sweating that bet. There's no way that was clear one way or the other. But here, I mean, I'm just looking at, you know, a wild Betch Kohea fighting Jessica Eye, who throws straight punches when she's on her game. I think it was the Sarah McMahon fight, her last fight, correct?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she was just tentative because of the takedown threat, and I don't really think Betch provides that. So I just see straight shots landing for Jessica Eye. I'm trusting her at any minus money at all. So good luck to you if you decide to pull the trigger on that one, Dan. But for me, it's another clear pass.
Paolo, who do you agree with, Dan or Kyle?
Yeah, let's go with Betch here. I just wanted to say I picked Betch in one of the fights before she got kicked out of the UFC or something. But I don't know, man. The thing about Jessica Eye, she's so gun shy lately. But yeah, maybe it's because of the Sarah McMahon fight. She was going up against a wrestler, or maybe it's something else. I mean, who knows? Sometimes some fighters just don't show up or just lose the fighting spirit. But maybe fighting in front of her home crowd and everything like that is gonna reinvigorate her. And Betch Kohea isn't exactly the hardest fighter to knock out or beat up, so maybe it's going to go well for her. But I'm going to go with Betch because I think she's going to be the more aggressive fighter, and judges tend to favor that. So if Eye doesn't knock her out or beat her up badly enough, I think we could get a robbery for Betch just by being the more active fighter.
Something that could counteract a potential robbery for Kohea is the fact it is in Cleveland. But as far as the matchup goes, it's a tough one. It's really a coin toss fight for me. Betch Kohea could pressure Eye for 15 minutes and win off of points. Maybe she could even crack her early on, knock out Jessica Eye. Eye has looked terrible in her last few fights. Granted, she has fought fairly tough competition. Miocic Tate, Sarah McMahon, more the former, of course. Betch Kohea is too sloppy on the feet, though. For me to pick her, I'm gonna go Jessica Eye, but not confident at all because Eye, like I said, hasn't looked that good in her last few fights. Very tentative. but I think she'll be able to outpoint Betch Kohea. Now, next up, we got Jessica Andrade and Joanne Calderwood kicking off the 5-fight UFC 203 pay-per-view main card. Very, very fun fight in the strawweight division. Daniel, are you going with Andrade here or JoJo?
I think Jessica Andrade might have the most knockout power out of anyone in that division, even more than Joanna. I mean, Joanna, it's cumulative, it's volume, and then she busts you up. But with Jessica Andrade, she can stop these chicks with one shot. And Joanne looked amazing in her last fight, but it was at 125 pounds. She hasn't been performing the best at 115. I want to see if that was a matter of going up a weight class or if that was a matter of her evolving since she's been putting in work at TriStar. So I'm going to sit back because I was expecting Andrade to be the dog here. So for that reason, I'm gonna step away. But I got Andrade winning this fight.
All right. Now, Paolo, are you going with Jessica Andrade here or Joanne Calderwood?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jessica Andrade here. When you said a fair comparison to say she's probably going to be the John Lineker of this division because she's like this small little pocket full of power kind of fighter. And I mean, it's amazing that she fought at 135. If you just look at how some big of the girls there are like Holly Holm, and then you see Jessica Andrade, you're like, holy shit, man. This girl's been going up against much bigger fighters, and she's been beating some of them. And the thing about Calderwood is, even though she's a striker, and maybe she's been making improvements at TriStar like she showed against Val, but she does have a tendency to back herself up in the cage if you pressure her. And the thing about Jessica Andrade, she's not going to respect her power at all. She's going to just, Calderwood's going to nick her up a couple of times, and she's just going to keep coming forward. And so I think Jessica Andrade is going to win here on points. It'll be a close fight, but I think Andrade is going to pull it off.
All right, now, Kyle, are you going with the favorite here, Jessica Andrade, or do you think JoJo Calderwood can pull off the win?
I just think it's a bad matchup for JoJo here. When you get these Muay Thai fighters who like to stand toe-to-toe, who don't move a lot, and who just kind of shell up, power punchers in MMA can really exploit that, and that's what I see here. I see Jessica just walking forward, like you guys said, just getting nicked up a little bit, but then landing harder shots, making JoJo cover up and swarming her. That said, I do think Joanne is the technically better striker with straight shots, with more diverse attack. But I mean, great comparison by Paolo to John Lineker. Like if you have the power and the durability, you can just walk forward and storm people. That's what I think Andrade does best, and that's a type of stylistic matchup that bodes very poorly for JoJo. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. It's going to be entertaining for sure. But I got Jessica Andrade by TKO, probably a standing TKO like her last fight.
Yeah, Jessica Andrade looked spectacular against Jessica Penne in her last outing, in her strawweight debut. That really, really great performance. Dominated Penne on the feet, eventually got the finish. She's like a strawweight version of John Lineker. I am going to pick the Brazilian here. I still find it just amazing how she's good, dropping the 20 pounds. I know she's a small bandweight, but oftentimes you cut more weight, your chin won't be as good, you won't be able to perform as well. But completely the opposite for Andrade, so super happy she made the drop. Of course, Calderwood, like Daniel added, her last fight, some people may already forget, but it was at 125. She got used to that cut a little bit. It will be interesting to see how the cut goes for her going down to 115 again. She looked good against Valerie Letourneau, got the late finish, of course. But you still have to take into consideration that she did get choked out by Marina Rose. She did almost lose to Courtney Casey. Courtney Casey had her hurt on the feet in their fight last year. If Courtney Casey can wobble Calderwood, I think Jessica Andrade can put her away. I like Jessica Andrade here by TKO midway through the fight. And I agree with Daniel what he said. I believe she does have the most knockout power in the women's strawweight division, even taking into account Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the champion. Now, next up, we got the California kid, Uriah Faber, taking on Jimmy Rivera. Daniel, you're very, very high on Jimmy Rivera. So tell us why you are picking him to defeat the veteran Uriah Faber.
Man, I'm very high on Jimmy Rivera. I've been high on him for a very long time. The guy is a winner. He comes to fight. I mean, he's got all his bases covered. I guess the biggest concern would be maybe his cardio or his chin, but at the same time, he recovers to adversity. He reacts to it very, very well. I mean, that Pedro Munoz fight is all the evidence you need. The Yuri Alcantara fight, Yuri also had a very good first round against Uriah Faber. Don't forget about that, where he back-mounted Faber and almost got the finish. He didn't get, he dropped Jimmy, but people forget that Yuri's got the same reach as a light heavyweight, and he's a southpaw. He's very tough to deal with on the feet. And Jimmy tried to beat him at his own game. I think Jimmy, he's going to use that 3-2 left body kick. He's going to be too fast for Faber. And I love Faber. I mean, the dude, if it wasn't for him and BJ Penn, the lighter weight classes wouldn't be where they are today. But, at the end of every fighter's career, when they start talking retirement, like you said earlier on the show, Nick, you gotta pick against them, man. And I think this is going to be that fight that gets Jimmy Rivera from number 13 to, number 5 in the world. So, yeah, man, Jimmy Rivera by knockout.
Interesting. Paolo, are you going with Jimmy Rivera here, the slight favorite? Last time I checked, anyways, he was the favorite. Or are you going with the veteran, the California kid, Uriah Faber?
Oh, it's a tough fight because it's always tough to pick against Uriah Faber unless it's a title fight. Then it's automatic fade Faber. But yeah, no. The thing is, I like to keep watching the Francisco Rivera fight against Uriah Faber because I think Rivera was having. I think that was the best Cisco. I know we all make fun of Cisco Rivera now, but during that fight, Cisco Rivera was having some success against Faber. Although now that you mentioned, Yuri Alcantara beat him in the first round too, so maybe Faber just tends to drop the first, and then he'll be like, all right, time to win now, and then he wins the second, third, and whatever else. But I guess Jimmy Rivera, man, he has all the tools to beat Faber, man. He's got the wrestling, he's the much better striker. I mean, Faber never really evolved in his striking since he came to the UFC or something. So I think what's gonna happen is Rivera's gonna keep the fight standing and outpoint Faber.
Very interesting. Kyle, do you agree with both Daniel and Paulo here? Are you going with the 19-1 bantamweight up-and-comer Jimmy Rivera, or do you think Uriah Faber will get back into the winning call?
I was very high on Jimmy in this fight as well, but when I went back and I watched the tape, I would need some juicy like plus 150 to plus 180 to really bet him here. I think this is going to be a dog fight, and what Uriah lacks in maybe youthfulness and power, he makes up for in veteran savviness. I think he beats Jimmy Rivera in the clinch. I think he's a better scrambler than Jimmy Rivera. But that being said, I am leaning with the younger, more athletic guy. And like Dan said, the 3-2 or the way Jimmy will pop in, take an angle, and then strike again. I think that is going to give Faber a lot of trouble because Faber, we all know, just likes to throw single bombs, and that's just not going to work against a guy like Jimmy Rivera, who's very mindful in the pocket. So I am leaning with Jimmy Rivera, but I felt like he had better output in his first 2 UFC fights. And when I went back and I watched it, I was a little disappointed at that. I thought that was really where he was going to win this fight. Maybe he shows up because, that was trial by fire, fighting Pedro Munoz and Yuri Alcantara. Those are 2 very, very solid fighters. So, and then here he gets like a bigger name, probably an easier fight. So I can see him rising to the occasion. But again, like stylistically, this is just going to be a dog fight, and Faber is good in those type of fights. So good luck to Dan on your bets. I might end up using Jimmy as a parlay leg because that would be really, really juicy. But so yeah, I'm leaning with Rivera, but no bet as of yet.
This is a very close fight. I don't think either guy will win in decisive fashion. I think either way, it's basically a coin toss for me. I think either way it will end in a close decision where some people will disagree with it, some people will agree with it. I very slightly do lean with Uriah Faber here. I find it really tough to pick against a guy like Faber just because he's such a veteran. He's been in the game for so long. Although, as Daniel mentioned, I did talk about earlier on with the Ian McCall fight and Ray Borg fight. You talk about retirement, you never know. But Faber, I don't think he's considered retirement as much as, say, McCall has. He's still gone out there saying he really wants this, and whether that's talk or not, whether he really means that or whether he's just saying that, I don't know. I have no way of telling that. As far as the matchup goes, Faber's better on the ground. Rivera's better, a bit more powerful on the feet, I think. He's a better athlete. The age could come into play here. But at the end of the day, I just really haven't been that impressed with Jimmy Rivera. And Daniel will laugh, and he'll come. I know he completely disagrees with that. He's super high on Rivera. I'm not that high on Jimmy Rivera. I don't see him as the future of the bantamweight division. That's just my personal opinion. I haven't seen anything from Jimmy Rivera to make me believe he will get past a veteran like Uriah Faber. Faber has been on his way out for a long time, so it's really tough to predict Faber fights in these lose-lose situations. He doesn't really, he's not, if he wins, he doesn't gain much, and it's if Rivera loses, he doesn't lose that much. If he wins, it's huge. So it's tough to call these types of fights. Rivera's the up-and-comer. Faber's on his way out. Faber didn't look fantastic against a guy like Frankie Science. Didn't look great against Cisco Rivera a year or two back. Again, it's a coin toss, but I will go with Uriah Faber by a very close decision. Now, next up, we got the debut of CM Punk taking on Mickey Gall. Daniel, who are you picking here?
Well, one doesn't simply make their UFC debut with 0 fight experience and 1 year of training. It just doesn't work like that. You know, I hope CM Punk wins because he's friends with our boy Team Rock Biggie. So if you're friends with Biggie Rhodes, you're friends with me. So, you know, I hope CM Punk wins, but I think Mickey Gall's going to finish him in the first round.
All right, Kyle, again, an interesting matchup. You don't break down fights like these too often. Do you give CM Punk any chance to win this fight?
Down a fight like this was Kimbo Slice versus Data 5000, and I take a lot of pride in saying that I did bet on Kimbo Slice in that fight. All I needed to see was Data hit the bag, and that's the same thing I'm seeing with CM Punk. I don't see any improvements. You know, I see a very amateur guy. I think this is a total mismatch. I think he should be fighting a guy of similar age who maybe has a couple amateur boxing fights, maybe a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, not a long, tall, you know, young kid with a brown belt. With people will say 2-0, we don't know anything. They might as well be 0-0, but I say no way. I think Mickey Gall is a kid who's been training for a long time. And what I did see in that was that he's at the very least comfortable with punches coming towards his face. And when we're talking about fighters of this caliber, that's a big deal. I think he just completely swarms CM Punk, lands shots, gets him down, submits him, or TKOs him. But I will say I respect and admire CM Punk for stepping in there. I think he's doing it for the right reasons. I don't think it's a cash grab. I don't think he needs to do this. I think it's just something he wanted to do personally, and I respect him a lot for that. But when you're breaking down fighters and skill sets and everything and stylistic matchups, Mickey Gall's going to wreck this dude.
And that's something a bit crazy too, because most of these fighters in the UFC are doing this. Yes, they do love fighting, but also because the money. They're doing it for the money as well. But CM Punk, there's no way he needs money. He can make more money in pro wrestling, in acting. So I do admire CM Punk in that regard for coming in here for supposedly the right reason. Anyways, go Paolo. Who are you picking? Do you give CM Punk any chance here against Mickey Gall?
I actually have an article with Sportsnet coming out about CM Punk and about saying that, sorry, as a CM Punk fan, as a guy who watches pro wrestling and still gets made fun of for watching pro wrestling and tweeting about it, I just can't pick CM Punk, man. I mean, this is not pro wrestling anymore. I mean, and the thing about guys like, at least guys like Batista or Brock Lesnar or Bobby Lashley, all these other dudes, pro wrestlers who went and tried MMA, these guys had some kind of a fighting background before they joined MMA. These guys were athletes. CM Punk, what did CM Punk do? They said he did Kempo when he was a kid. I mean, I did Aikido when I was a kid. Should I step into UFC right now? You know, and I don't know, man. It's just, I just hope he does better than people expect him to. I just hope Mickey Gall doesn't just go in there, run him over, beat the crap out of him on the feet, throw him on the ground, and submit him and basically expose him and stuff like that. So I hope CM Punk just does better. If he does better than expected, I'd already consider that a moral victory, but I just don't see it. I think Mickey Gall's going to run through him, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pick CM Punk. Well, one, you don't know enough about him. Of course, Rufus Sport's going to be very private about how CM Punk looks and whatnot. We don't know where he's best. We don't know whether that's on the feet or on the ground or what have you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a quote unquote striker. He's been training for a year and a half. He's 38 years old. Mickey Gall's the better athlete. Mickey Gall, even though he's a lot younger than CM Punk, he's been in martial arts also for a lot longer than CM Punk. CM Punk, he didn't have a background in anything. He was a stuntman. He was slightly athletic. You have to be slightly athletic to be a wrestler, I guess. But at the end of the day, he was a stuntman. He was not a martial arts fighter. He's not any sort of fighter. Mickey Gall, he's hungry. Both guys are hungry. I should say that CM Punk, as I said, he's not here for the money, because the money, he can make more money over pro wrestling, over at pro wrestling. So he's here for the right reasons. So I give him props for that. He's definitely all in. But I do think he will be surprised when he steps inside the cage. I think Mickey Gall will tear him apart. I think he can hurt him on the feet, sink in a choke on the ground. Wherever the fight goes, I think Mickey Gall is by far the better fighter. And I think Mickey Gall will finish this fight within 5 minutes. Now, next up, we got the co-main event of the evening, a heavyweight rematch that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We got Fabricio Verdum, the former champion, taking on Travis Brown. Kyle, I'll start with you. Verdum, of course, won their first fight back at UFC on Fox 11 in April of 2014. Do you think it plays out similar? Are you going with the Brazilian, or do you think Hapa Brown can pull off the upset?
Who knows, man? Travis Brown's a big dude. He hits hard. And, people say he hasn't made many improvements training with Edmond, but I kind of disagree, because I don't know if they're improvements, but he's definitely adapted his style. He stance now. I think he sits down on his punches a bit better. And, he's already so tall that he doesn't really need to fight tall. But and all that being said, like, Verdum just styled on him in their first fight. But that was a Verdum chasing a title who was in tremendous shape. We saw in Verdum's last fight, or at least I saw, he looked terrible, like physically. He had a dad bod. He didn't show up on point. So I think we got to see Verdum on the scale. Like, skill for skill, I think he's the better fighter. But at the end of the day, Brown's a dangerous dude. And if Verdum doesn't show up on point, I think there's going to be trouble for him. Plus, he got knocked out his last fight, so maybe his chin's cracked. But again, JDS cracked his chin years ago. So it's not always the case that once a guy gets knocked out, you can just write him off. But, all that being said, skill for skill, I'll go with Verdum as long as he shows up on point and in shape.
Interesting. Daniel, are you going with the favorite here, the Brazilian, the former champion, Fabricio Verdum, or do you think Travis Brown can pull off the upset?
I mean, to be honest, dude, I don't really think it was about him being out of shape. He's a fucking heavyweight. He's never been that ripped. It's just that with Stipe, if you charge this guy, he's going to circle and counter, whereas with Travis Brown, he's going to back himself up against the cage, and he's going to take your punches. So, yeah, it's just a different matchup, man, and dudes like Stipe will capitalize on, we only see the clip of him running forward and getting fucking dropped, man, but we don't see what happened before that, where he was landing those big kicks and he was trying to follow up to finish Stipe, which would probably work against Travis Brown. But like I said, man, with Stipe, he'll circle and counter. But Travis Brown, I mean, look, it's a heavyweight fight. He's got a chance to knock out Verdum if Verdum's underestimating him. But I think Verdum's better everywhere, man. And Travis Brown, we talk about Verdum coming back too soon. How about Travis Brown? He's coming back too soon too, man. I mean, that Kane fight wasn't too long ago. So, yeah, Verdum's going to finish him here.
And it was 2 months after Verdum did get knocked out. I know the Verdum loss was a bit more brutal, but at the end of the day, it was a knockout loss. Paolo, are you going with Verdum or Travis Brown?
I'm still going to go with Verdum here. Not as confident as if he didn't get knocked the F out by Miocic, but I think that was weird in that fight. Verdum didn't fight like he would normally fight. I guess he got too cocky, and his cockiness finally dawned on him, because the first time he fought Travis Brown, he was like styling on him too, man. He was taunting him. He was basically goading him and stuff like that. I mean, and eventually he would catch up to him. And when he sinked in that choke against Kane, he had the biggest smile on his face. And then that troll face, he did, I don't know, that just became freaking, what's it called? That just became his gimmick now. So maybe that knockout could have been the best thing that's happened to him, because he's more focused now. He's hungrier again. And he's going to make an example out of Travis Brown. But that said, Travis Brown always has that one-shot knockout power, whether he's going to kick someone in the chin or Superman punch them. So you got to be worried about that. But, I mean, this is only 3 rounds, not 5 like the last time. So I think Verdum's going to win at least 2 out of 3 here.
Fabricio Verdum is better than Travis Brown ever. He's certainly better on the mat, and he's still, I believe, better on the feet. The only way Verdum will lose this fight, well, one, of course, it's a heavyweight matchup, so you can't count out Travis Brown completely because he could crack Verdum. It will be interesting to see what Fabricio's chin is like in the fight, whether or not coming off the knockout to Stipe will make his chin terrible, or whether that was just a roadblock in his career, and that didn't actually affect his chin. We'll see. I don't know. No one has the answer to that, of course. But also, like Kyle, I believe it was who mentioned this. If Verdum goes in there thinking, oh, I've already beat this guy 50-45, and takes him lightly, we saw what happened when you take guys lightly, and you're better skill-wise, better than them ever. Last couple months back, UFC 199 in the main event. I think we all remember when Bisping knocked out Luke Rockhold. So, I mean, it's a heavyweight matchup. Anything can happen. But you got to go for Doom here. He's better, as I said, better on the feet, better on the ground. I think this time around, though, it'll be even more decisive than it was last time. I think Verdum will finish Travis Brown. Now, next up, we got the main event of the evening. It's on the line. The champ, Stipe Miocic, defends his belt for the first time against Alistair Overeem in Cleveland, the land. Daniel, I'll start with you. Are you going with the Reem here, or will the champ retain?
Stipe is a really damn good fighter. I bet on him in the Verdum fight, but now I don't know if I'm going to bet against him, but I'm going to pick against him. I'm going to go with the Reem here. I think that Stipe relies on his durability too much, and he can get away with it against certain guys. But against Overeem, that's a terrible idea because this guy starts firing off those fucking liver kicks, those check knees, those left hooks. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to go down. So Stipe he's got to have the performance of his career here. He's got to be very smart because Overeem's a smart guy too. Now, I know Overeem started to work around his chin, better footwork, better head movement, but make no mistake about it. If he gets touched on the button, he's going to go down and he's going to go to sleep again. It can 100% happen again. But I think that the fact that he has learned to work around it, kind of like my boy Edson has, and now he's winning more fights, I think that's going to aid him here. And, dude, I think he's going to beat Stipe in Cleveland and new.
Well, Paolo, we don't get too many Alistair Overeem picks on the show unless it's me. And even still, I've picked against Overeem. But anyways, Overeem versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight title. Who will take home the crown?
Well, firstly, Nick, I hope you pick Overeem, because if you don't, you better just cancel this whole show and everything you're doing right now, because how can you not pick your favorite fighter in the most important fight of their life? You know what I mean? But with that said, I'm picking the Reem here. He's just the much more advanced striker, man. This guy, I mean, if you watch the Robin Black breakdown, I mean, he's basically like, this guy was a built striking machine, and everything he does is like a set of complicated, there's like a lot of complicated things that goes around there that only better cappers would be able to tell you about it. But the only thing that was really keeping me hesitant about this was his chin, as we all know. The Reem, I mean, thing is, what's it called? Miocic fought Arlovsky, who had a similar problem. He had a bad chin, but he hadn't been knocked out at that point. And I actually picked Arlovsky there because I thought he was the better striker. But I mean, all it took was for Miocic to find his chin within a couple of minutes, and Arlovsky was gone. So what would happen if Miocic finds Overeem's chin a couple of times, man? It won't take much, especially at heavyweight. But with that said, I think Overeem's gonna knock out Stipe at some point, maybe in the third or fourth round.
Very interesting. I did not expect both of you guys to pick Overeem, but that is what has happened. Kyle, are you going to agree with both Daniel and Paolo here? Are you picking Alistair Overeem to gain, or do you think Stipe Miocic will retain?
I got Overeem. He's a beast, man. He's just a better striker, and I think stylistically, now Stipe does have the style to kind of exploit Alistair's weakness in the sense that he just fights like a robot. He's just good at punching. He trains not to get tired, walk forward, and throw punches. But I think he's much more basic than Overeem, and I think Overeem, like Dan said, he's going to find the openings. He's going to find the left body kick, the knees, the check hook, which is very, very good. His left hook is money. And then the way I see this fight going down is like Stipe is going to try to come in to crack him, but then Overeem's going to create space, stay on the outside. And then what happens when Stipe gets a little impatient, a little flustered? Is he going to shoot for sloppy takedowns or just rush in? It's kind of the similar situation when Stipe won the belt. Like Verdun got impatient or whatever, however you want to say it. Like he rushed in and got caught. I can see Stipe rushing in here and getting caught in his hometown. And if he shoots for takedowns, I mean, you cannot forget that Alistair Overeem is a very good grappler with a very lethal guillotine. So I don't think the wrestling is going to be there for Stipe because he's going to be fighting off chokes. And then on the feet, Overeem's the better guy at distance. Basically, the champ here has a puncher's chance, but it's a good one because that's his whole game, and that's the chink in Overeem's armor. So all that being said, I am going with Overeem. Not sure about a bet. I would need like plus 150, plus 140 maybe, but at a pick'em price, I think his chin is kind of a liability. Like you got to remember, it wasn't Bigfoot that cracked Overeem's chin. It was Shogun in the Pride Grand Prix, and he's won a lot of fights since then. So I mean, his chin is always an issue, and I really like that he's addressed it at Jackson's. Very intelligent camp, good for game planning, and I think this new kind of intelligent, patient Overeem is going to give Stipe a lot of trouble on the outside, which is going to lead to the finish. So I got Overeem.
Well, I did not expect all four of us to go with the challenger here, but I'm going with Alistair Overeem to win the heavyweight championship. I've said it since I started watching MMA, or since I started writing about MMA. My second article ever was basically about, will Alistair Overeem ever rise and become the champion? And I said yes, he will, because he's the most skilled heavyweight in the UFC. It all just comes down to his chin. I've believed that since I was 13 years old. I've always said. Yeah, I turned 14 today. So But anyways, the Overeem, he has more tools on the feet. Miocic, I think his best chance to win this fight is 100% wrestling. He's a very good striker, but he's basic. He doesn't have tools, the tools like Alistair Overeem does, the kicks and whatnot. It is a heavyweight bout. It comes down to who lands first. If Stipe Miocic lands, well, it's a given that he will knock out Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem does not have a chin. It's very, very obvious. He cannot take a shot. To avoid getting hit in the past 2 years, though. That's why he's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's a lot more patient, a lot more movement. Footwork is so much better than it was a few years ago. So it may be not the most crowd-pleasing style of fighting nowadays, but it gets the job done. The job done on Saturday. Stipe Miocic, my gut feeling is he tries to stand with Overeem. That is a mistake on Stipe's part. Overeem, as I said, by far the better striker, in my opinion. If Stipe lands, it's lights out. Stipe is a very durable fighter, but Overeem can knock out anybody. It is a heavyweight fight. It's a coin toss, but my pick is on Alistair Overeem. He's a better striker. That's where I think the fight will take place. So you got to go with the better striker, despite his chin. So, let's get into our DraftKings team and our bets and whatnot. Paolo, king of DraftKings, let us know your team, if you have one made already, for DraftKings.
Well, that said, I haven't felt like a real DraftKing lately because I've been on a bit of a losing streak. But you know what? Maybe we'll win big here, because the last time I was on a losing streak, I ended up winning big there. So right now I got Mickey Gall, who's eating up the majority of my salary, the most expensive guy, and probably going to be the most drafted guy in DraftKings. But I mean, what are you going to do? It's probably going to be a first-round finish. Drudge, there's a good chance that she's going to take out John Calderwood there and probably land a lot of strikes along the way. So that's a lot of points. I got Jimmy Rivera, and then I got Dareem and Betch Kohea. So basically a lot of fighters under 10,000 and Mickey Gall at like a whopping 11,400.
Very quickly, this is something that I just saw on Twitter. Mike Chiappetta tweeted out. Apparently in the recent UFC Embedded, Mickey Gall said he wanted to walk out to the song Mickey. Isn't allowing that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's Dana. He likes the harder stuff. He's done that before, where he said guys can't change their song, or that it's not hard enough. I don't know what that means, but like, yeah, he definitely polices that a little bit.
Well, I'll definitely trust you. I've never heard of that, but I don't know. That's a bit crazy. But anyways, Kyle, do you play DraftKings?
I have been. I'm terrible at it though.
But you don't have. Do you have a team? No.
Piecing one together right now. I can't find a final guy, but I like. Man, Sean Spencer's really cheap. Ian McCall's really cheap. Andrade is really cheap. I like Dober. I think Dober rolls. I think he's the lock of the card. But yeah, I mean, so if you got those 4 guys and then maybe throw Overeem, that leaves you with over 1,000 left. So that's not going to be a very owned team, and they could win a GPP. But at the same time, don't take my advice here too seriously. I am not a draft king.
Yeah, Paolo, you'll leave the title to him. Kyle, go through some of your bets. I know you went through them a little bit, but just to recap a little bit, who are some guys you're looking to play or have already played for this card?
Yeah, like I said, I have 2 units on Sean Spencer. I think he's the dog of the fight, or the dog of the night. I like using Dober as a parlay leg. I'm looking at going Dober. Let me just bring it up here right quick. You can go Dober with I got Dober and Punk Dober and Gall for about even money. So that I like doing that. It would be maybe Rivera, maybe Andrade. Not too much on this card though, honestly. Trying to pick my shots a bit better now, not betting on slop. But so yeah, that's what I like. I think Sean Spencer is the best bet of the card. And then I like I said, I like Dober in parlays. So it is what it is. But follow me at Rockstarzee. I post all my bets there, and I'm also tracked at rockstarzee.caprotect.com, so you can check out all my official plays there.
Perfect. Daniel, let the people know your bets, and as per usual, you always jump ahead and let us know everything else.
Yeah, man, you know the deal. I mean, look, 3 units on Jimmy Rivera, and then after all of Cleveland bets on Jessica I, that's when I'm going to move in on Betch Kohea for 1. Look, man, just keeping it real. Going to get back on track at UFC 203, bestfightpicks.com, at bestfightpicks on Twitter, and I'm also third party verified by that thing that Rockstarzee mentioned.
All right. I will quickly go through my DraftKings team. So I got Nick Lenson there. I got Jessica Andrade. I got Alistair Overeem. I got Yancy Medeiros, and I got Uriah Faber. A bit iffy on Faber because I don't see him finishing Jimmy Rivera. Of course, Jimmy Rivera is tough, but that's my team anyways for now. Paolo, let everyone know where they can find you on social media, your writing, anything else you got going on in the world of MMA.
Yeah, so just check out at Sportsnet and look out for the CM Punk article I'm doing. I'm really trying to look for as many ways in which a guy can win in a first pro fight in the toughest league in the world. Really not looking good for CM Punk, but I'm going to try to remain optimistic here. Be optimistic for a guy who's just following his dream, man. Stop hating on the guy, man. It's not his fault the UFC signed him. Blame the UFC for it if you want. But, I mean, that's been said a million times. So tired of it, that narrative. And yeah, follow me at GoPaolo MMA.
All right, as for me, you can find me on Twitter at NickUFC. You can find all of my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. You can also check out my other podcast, The MMA Circus, over at bloodyelbow.com. This past week, we have 3 guests on the show. We had the Big Show himself, new WSOF heavyweight fighter Jared Rocholt. We also had UFC veteran Will Chope. And, of course, Fight Network's MMA analyst, Robin Black. So check that out. That was out earlier today. Interview pieces out almost every day. Just dropped on earlier today with UFC 202 winner Marvin Vettori. Had one out, I believe, earlier today or yesterday with UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion Amanda Nunes. Had one out with Cajun Johnson. A bunch of other interview pieces out all the time. So check that out over at Bloody Elbow. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining me here on Before the Battle as always. And with that, enjoy the fight.